Hello, my dear children. Hope you are doing good. So, today we'll be going through the reading and explanation of Unit 7 of your English Literature book, that is Gogol's First Day. So, let's begin. Gogol Ganguly is a young Bengali boy who lives in America. He is about to start going to school for the first time. His parents, Ashok and Ashima, tell him that he will be called Nikhil when he is in school. Gogol has never been called Nikhil before and he cannot understand why his parents have made this decision. So as you already know, I've told you in the summary in last video that Gogol Ganguly is a young Bengali boy who lives in America and he was about to start going to school for the first time when his parents Ashok and Ashima decided a good name for him and that was Nikhil. When they told about this thing that he will be called Nikhil in his new school, he was very disappointed and was not comfortable with his name. Gogol doesn't want a new name. He can't understand why he has to answer to anything else. Why do I have to have a new name? He asks his parents, tears springing to his eyes. Tears springing to his eyes means he suddenly starts to cry. It would be one thing if his parents were to call him Nikhil too, but they tell him that the new name will be used only by the teachers and children at school. He is afraid to be Nikhil, someone he doesn't know and who doesn't know him. His parents tell him that they each have two names too, as do all their Bengali friends in America and all their relatives in Calcutta. It's a part of growing up, they tell him, part of being Bengali. They write it for him on a sheet of paper, ask him to copy it over 10 times. Don't worry, his father says. To me and your mother, you will never be anyone but Gogol. So in this paragraph, we come to know Gogol was not happy and was not comfortable to get a new name for his school, and he didn't understand why he had to respond to some other name. He was afraid to be Nikhil, as according to him, Nikhil was different from Gogol's personality, whom he didn't know. He asked his parents, crying, why he had to get a new name, to which his parents tried to convince him by explaining that even they each got two names and all their Bengali friends in America and also the relatives in Calcutta got two names as well. They told him that it was customary for a Bengali boy to have two names and they wrote Nikhil on a sheet of paper asking Gogol to practice writing his new name on it. They even tried to comfort Gogol by saying that he should not get disappointed, he should not worry as to his parents, as to his mom and dad. He will never be anyone but Gogol. At school, Ashok and Gogol are greeted by the secretary, Mrs. McNabb, who asks Ashok to fill out a registration form. He provides a copy of Gogol's birth certificate and immunization record, which Mrs. McNabb put in a folder along with the registration. This way, Mrs. McNabb says, leading them to the principal's office. The name on the door says Candace Lapidus. Mrs. Lapidus is a tall, slender woman. Slender means thin in an attractive way or gracefully thin. Slender woman with short white blonde hair. Blonde is a color, fair or yellow hair. She looks at the registration form and smiles kindly at the boy who is clutching his father's hand. So here in this paragraph, we come to know that after all the discussions regarding Gogol's good name Nikhil at home were over, when Gogol and his father were at school, Ashok Gogol's father was asked to fill the registration form and provide the documents related to the admission procedure by secretary Mrs. McNabb. And then they were taken to the principal's office, and the name of the principal was Mrs. Candace Lapidus, who was a tall, attractively thin, beautiful lady with blonde hair. She looked at registration form and smiled kindly at Gogol, who was holding his father's hand very tightly in nervousness. Welcome to elementary school, Nikhil. I'm your principal, Mrs. Lapidus. Gogol looks down at his sneakers. The way the principal pronounces his new name is different from the way his parents say it. The second part of it longer, sounding like heel, like she pronounced it like Nick Heel. She bends down so that her face is level with his and puts her hand on his shoulder. Can you tell me how old you are, Nikhil? So here Mrs. Lapidus introduced herself to Gogol and welcomed him by addressing his new name Nikhil. Gogol looked at his sneakers having nothing to say, and the way Mrs. Lapidus pronounced Nikhil was different from the way his parents say. She bent down towards Gogol in order to establish rapport or a kind of friendship from him to make him comfortable at his new school and asked his age to him. When the question is repeated and there is still no response, Mrs. Lapidus asks, Mr. Ganguly, does Nikhil follow English? Of course he does, Ashok says. My son is perfectly bilingual. Bilingual means people who are able to use two different languages. In order to prove that Gogol knows English, Ashok does something he has never done before. He addresses his son in careful accented English. Go on, Gogol, he says. Tell Mrs. Lapidus, how old are you? Accent means it is a particular way of pronouncing word connected with a country or region where a person belongs to. So Gogol didn't respond to Mrs. Lapidus as she called him by the name Nikhil. It was hard for Gogol to respond to this name. Again she repeated the question for Gogol, but again she got no response. So when she saw that the child is not responding to his name, she confirmed to Ashok if Nikhil followed English or if he understood or spoke English, to which Ashok replied that his son was perfectly able to use two different languages and he was able to understand and speak English. In order to prove that Gogol followed English, Ashok, just like all Indian parents do, they expect their kid to show their talent in front of guests. They try to convince their kid, they try to encourage their kid to sing a song or recite any poem or do such kind of things in front of guests. You all must have gone through this situation in front of your guest. So now, just in the same way, Ashok, just like all Indian parents, tried to convince Gogol to respond to Mrs. Lapidus by addressing him by his real name, Gogol, in careful accented English. What was that? Mrs. Lapidus says. That name you called him something with a G. Oh, that is what we call him at home only. But his good name is. He nods his head firmly, Nikhil. Mrs. Lapidus frowns. I am afraid I don't understand. Good name? Frowns means it is a facial expression showing displeasure or disapproval by contracting the eyebrows. Yes, Mrs. Lapidus studies the registration form. She has not had to go through this confusion with the other two Indian children in the school. She opens up the folder and examines the immunization record and the birth certificate. There seemed to be some confusion, Mr. Ganguly, she says. According to these documents, your son's legal name is Gogol. So what happens here? Mrs. Lapidus overheard Ashok when he addressed his son by his real name Gogol and asked him what was that the name he called something with G. Ashok then explained Mrs. Lapidus that Gogol was the name that they called him at home. It was his nickname. And also he added very firmly that Gogol's good name should be Nikhil. Mrs. Lapidus, showing disapproval to what Ashok said, asked him about what is good name. She didn't understand, as in America there was no such customary of having two names, and she didn't know about such thing. Then she examined the registration form and other documents, as she didn't want to get confused with the names of the other two Indian children in the school. While examining the documents, she came to know that the legal name of the child was Gogol, which she tried to clear with Ashok, saying that there seemed to be some confusion according to the documents he provided. The child's name was Gogol. Ashok tried to explain Mrs. Lapidus about the tradition of having two names in India, but she didn't give him chance and asked him the reason for calling the child Nikhil, to which Ashok replied that it was their wish. Then again, Mrs. Lapidus tried to confirm if Nikhil was child's middle name or nickname, and told Ashok that many children go there in school by their nickname, for which space is provided in the registration form. Ashok, losing his patience, tried to clear it out. He said that his son had no middle name, Nikhil was his good name, and it was the name for his school. To which Mrs. Lapidus, who was totally annoyed by then, but she tried to smile and said to Ashok that the boy clearly didn't respond to his so-called school name Nikhil. So my dear children, I hope you are clear with the explanation of the chapter till now. We'll go through the reading and explanation of the rest part of the chapter in next video. Thank you.